Sometimes in a human's life, God brings them to a major point of decision. There are many different decisions that we make, and some decisions have to be made again and again. Sometimes opportunities God presents us to make the right decision again and again and again and again. But there comes a point that after offering the opportunity to do right again and again, a human comes to a point where if the wrong decision is chosen yet again, the path chosen becomes rather permanent. This is the situation the religious leaders find themselves in John chapter 11. The miracle that Christ performs is so incredible and undeniable that they had to make a decision. If you've been following along as I've been preaching through John, you can watch these miracles and they're proof that they're offering that Jesus is the Messiah, that he is the Christ, the one that they should follow. That these miracles and the evidence of who he is keeps growing. Just recently, in John, I believe it was 9, he heals the blind man. That should have been a sign to them. They should have known with that Jesus was the Christ. Maybe it was 10, I don't remember, but one or the other. But one way or another, the evidence keeps building. And now we come to the story of Lazarus. John chapter 11. We're going to break this down into 2 points. The first point is the decision point arrived. The decision point arrived. And then the second point is the decision made. We're going to spend the majority of the time on the first point. The decision point arrived. So we're going to start in John chapter 11, verse 1. Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. That incident actually happens after this story. But if you remember from back when we started looking at the Gospel of John, John was essentially written to second-generation Christians. The other Gospels were written very early in a relatively close time period. John was written much later. And it's designed to target the audiences a little bit differently. Okay? And the people that would be reading it would be familiar from the other Gospels with this story. So that's why John points out that this is the one that wiped the Lord's hair. Verse 3, Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Jesus does not mean that the sickness is not fatal, but that it will not end ultimately in death. The thought is similar to chapter 9, where the blind man's handicap from birth happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. The death of Lazarus will prove to be for God's glory. Not in order that God may be praised, but in order that God's glory may be revealed. In John, glory is more commonly not the praise that is God's due, which is what we do like when we sing praises to him, but his revelation, his self-disclosure, showing who God is. This would be like the glory of God manifested in the Holy of Holies in the Old Testament. But God's self-disclosure takes place preeminently in his Son. If the death of Lazarus came about so that God's glory might be revealed, this particular revelation of God's glory is so that God's Son may be glorified through it. So the raising of Lazarus provides an opportunity for God in revealing his glory to glorify his Son. For it is the Father's express purpose that all should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. Okay? Jesus heard that. He said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. This is why the story is here for us. To show God to us. Verse 5. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. In spite of Jesus allowing Lazarus to die, so God's glory would be manifested, Jesus still loved Lazarus. Could Christ have prevented Lazarus from dying? Yes, he could have. But the plan of God is more important than the comfort of the saints. That's something that's hard to grapple with sometimes. And often the trials that saints go through are what reveals God's glory the greatest. God has allowed many saints all throughout history to go through many difficult trials. Think of Job. Think of Daniel. Think of some of the people you've known. I mean, I've seen some Christians go through some very difficult things. But if they keep focusing on God through that and keep living through focusing on Him and living for Him, God is glorified and God's glory is manifested. Who God is shown, because we don't have strength enough ourselves to go through those things and do what's right. It's only by God's strength that the saints can do what's right and bring Him glory. Verse 6. When he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Okay? The message reached Jesus about 1 day after the messenger left. Lazarus seems to have died almost as soon as the messenger left, based on when Jesus got there and how long Lazarus had been in the grave and the normal sequence of burial and stuff like that. It seems as though the messenger left, Lazarus passed. So in fact, when the messenger got to Jesus and told him that Lazarus was sick, Lazarus had already passed at that point. Jesus, of course, knew that, but because he is God. Lazarus seems to have died as soon as the messenger left. The purpose of Christ's delay was so that the Father's will would be accomplished. By the time Jesus had arrived, Lazarus had been in the grave so long that the decomposing process that the decomposing process would be well underway. If Jesus had resurrected Lazarus only a day, people might say that it was merely a reviving. Lazarus really wasn't completely dead yet. You know, Princess Bride, he's not all dead. He's mostly dead. You pop a pill in his mouth and he pops back up, right? Now, there is also a belief that the Jews had, we're not sure if it extended back this far, but they thought that the soul hovered above the body for 3 days after the person passed, looking for an opportunity to re-enter the body. But once it saw that the body was starting to decompose and saw a change, then the soul departed. This is what they actually believe. We're not sure it extended back that far, but one way or another, he was dead long enough that they had the funeral, they stuck him in the grave, and as one of them's going to say, Lord, he stinketh. You know, don't open that grave. Woo-wee! So, Lazarus is dead. He's not mostly dead, he is all dead. Verse 7. Then after said he to his disciples, let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he said unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth. But I go that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of the taking of rest in sleep. That whole section there talking about, are there not 12 hours in the day? You know, if any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not. The point there is essentially Jesus is wanting to do God's will. When we follow the light, we do God's will. Jesus isn't worried about the potential for stoning. He's not worried about that. He's following God's will because the safest place to be is in the center of God's will. That's just the way it is. Wherever that happens to be, if you are there in the center of God's will, you are safe. As long as God wants you to be safe. So the disciples get confused about the word sleep. They think Lazarus is fast asleep. You know, he's sick, he's taking a good nap, maybe he'll get better. Jesus is saying no, he is in fact asleep in the sense that he has died. Verse 14, then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Not speaking in slightly ambiguous terms. He's saying he's dead. He's all dead. And I am glad for your sakes that I were not there, to the intent ye might believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Okay? One of the purposes of this miracle was so that people will believe. I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Had the disciples seen Jesus heal many people? Yes. Many people at this point. But they have not seen yet Christ yet resurrect someone from the dead. This could have just been another healing. After years of following Christ around, several years of following him around, watching him heal this person, watching him heal that person, even as incredible as it was, it would probably come to the point of being, somewhat routine. It's just what happens. Christ goes someplace, he heals some people. It's normal. Part of the purpose of this miracle is to strengthen the faith of the disciples. Verse 16, then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. The disciples had not yet learned that Jesus was safe regardless of what others' intentions were. No one could kill Jesus until he was ready to lay down his life. Verse 17, then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. So Lazarus has passed. Lazarus' funeral has occurred. Lazarus was buried. And from the time he was buried, he's been there for 4 days. This is past that 3-day time period for sure. And if you've seen a carcass of an animal out on the road for 4 days, it's looking pretty bad after 4 days. So Lazarus is dead. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off, and many of the Jews came to Mary and Martha to comfort them concerning their brother. A poor person would only typically have a few people there to mourn the death. And they would just typically be locals. There's a couple miles difference from Bethany to Jerusalem, and many Jews were coming from Jerusalem to mourn the death of Lazarus. Therefore, we can conclude that this family is not poor, also based not just on this, but on the ointment that was put on Jesus' feet by Mary and wiped with her hair, and by the fact that there were many Jews that were coming. This family is well-known, prominent. So there's lots of Jews here. This isn't an isolated incident that nobody else is going to see. This is a significant thing that when this event happens, word is going to spread like wildfire with what happens here. Verse 19, and many of the Jews came to Mary and Martha to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. This is the same Martha that was covered about in Luke 10. This is just seeing their personalities. Martha's more of a go kind of person. Mary's more of a sit and contemplate and, easygoing sort of person there, I think. Verse 21, then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. Jesus saith unto her, thy brother shall rise again. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Verse 23 is a masterpiece of planned ambiguity. At one level, Jesus' words, your brother will rise again, could be taken as no more than a devout Orthodox attempt to provide Mary with solace by drawing her attention to the resurrection at the end. Something that all of us can take solace in when a loved one dies. Someone knows the Lord, they're going to be resurrected. And we're going to spend an eternity in heaven with them, and our bodies will be perfect, their bodies will be perfect, and we'll be able to glorify God together for all of eternity in a perfect location, in a perfect environment. And that is comforting to know. Death will not have the last word. At the last day, the resurrection will take place, and her brother will be restored to bodily life. That is the way Martha understood Jesus' words. But at another level, Jesus was promising more immediate resurrection for Lazarus. That point escapes Martha. Only the unfolding drama, this story that's unfolding, will disclose the full meaning of Jesus' words. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? These are some of the most powerful words ever uttered. These words are the theme of the chapter, and I think in some ways you could say these words are the theme of the Bible, or a core theme. Do you believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life? Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? As the saying goes, the proof is in the pudding. And Jesus is about to give everyone all the proof needed to believe that he is the resurrection and the life. The proof that he is going to give is so undeniable that the only person who would not follow it is somebody who hates Christ, who does not want to follow him, who does not want to do what's right. The proof that he is the resurrection and the life is immense just from what is going to happen to Lazarus. But that's not the end of the story. He's so totally the resurrection and the life that after he's dead, he's going to rise from the dead. I don't know about you, but I've never met a person that when they're died, they can do a thing for themselves. When they're dead, they're dead. That's what happens. Jesus, after he's dead, is going to have, even in his death, the capacity to resurrect himself from the dead. That is how totally and completely he is the resurrection and the life. His conquering of death is so profound and immense, and we're going to see a foreshadowing of that here in what Christ is getting ready to do with Lazarus. So, do you believe that he's the resurrection and the life? She said unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary, her sister, secretly, saying, The Master is come, and calleth for thee. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. The Jews then, which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she arose up hastily, and went out, followed her, saying, She goeth unto the grave to weep there. So these people are gathered around, comforting her, and Mary takes off to go meet Jesus, and they say, Oh, she's going to the grave. Let's go comfort her there. So they're following. So these events are not going to be a private thing between Mary, Martha, and Jesus. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and also the weeping which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. And said, Where have ye laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. The last few verses there, when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. The way it comes across in the English is kind of hard for us to grasp what's actually going on there. Jesus is troubled in the sense that he is frustrated over something. Not so much that he is sad that Lazarus had died, though he certainly was, to a certain extent, but he also knew what was getting ready to happen. What was it that Jesus was frustrated over? It seems that the unbelief of the Jews in God's power to raise the dead was the cause of his frustration. These people were weeping, and almost as a pagan would, not really grasping that the resurrection and the life exists, that there is a time when the saints will be resurrected. The Jews knew that and believed that, or should have, and it seems as though Jesus is actually frustrated that they don't fully grasp what's going on here. Something Jesus has oftentimes runs into with both his disciples and with the religious leaders and then the Jews in general. He sometimes gets frustrated with them because they should have known. They were the Jews. They were God's chosen people. They had the Old Testament given to them. And they had followed Jesus around him and seen his miracles. They should have understood and grasped what was going on. God holds people to a high expectation. When they have the truth, they should study it and know it. And these Jews should have known the truth. To whom much is given, much more shall be required. We have much more given to us today. And I think God's going to hold us to a very high standard. And unfortunately, I don't think we always study out things and know them the way we should and grasp them the way we should. So that's actually, I think, what's going on there. Verse 36, then said the Jews, behold how he loved him. And some of them said, could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? So they see Jesus weeping in his frustration, and they don't take it as an offense that, they didn't understand and that Jesus' sorrow was over their spiritual situation. But they think that, it's just because he loved him. Verse 38, Jesus therefore, again groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and the stone lay upon it. Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Isn't it enough that we come here to sorrow and cry? Do you have to make it stink here too? Can you imagine going to the funeral home and instead of all the pretty flowers, you open the door and it smells like dead carcasses rotten? I mean, that's kind of the picture here. They're going to the grave to weep. And why are you going to roll back the stone? We don't want to be here crying, going, our nose plugged because he stinks. Why are you doing that, Lord? Jesus saith unto her, said I not unto thee that if thou wouldest believe thou shouldest see the glory of God? Martha should have understood what was going to happen based on her earlier private conversation with the Lord and should have just trusted him. I mean, how many times has Jesus let her down? How many times since he was born did he ever let somebody down? He was always right. Why question him saying, roll back the stone? He had a plan. Just trust him. Verse 41, then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. And I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth! And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. And his face was bound about with a napkin. Jesus said unto them, loose him, and let him go. I used to imagine Lazarus walking out like one of those mummies in Egypt, like this kind of deal. It's not actually what would have happened, because the Jews did not wrap the dead the same way that the Egyptians did. The Egyptians wrapped them very tightly. It's part of the embalming process. The Jews wrapped them loosely. So yeah, he was wrapped up, but it would have been loosely wrapped up so that he could walk out. He was still bound up, but he was able to walk out. So the case has now been made for believing that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. He took a person that was undeniably dead, had a whole group of people here, people from all over, from Jerusalem, from Bethany, where that Mary and Martha were. All these people were here. And he said to his Father out loud, talked to him, said what was going to happen. And then he says, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus didn't come forth before Jesus said, Lazarus, come forth. The stone was rolled back for a period of time. Then Jesus said, Lazarus came forth. Then Lazarus came forth. Lazarus wasn't in there, still alive, just waiting on the stone to be rolled back. Even if he had been alive, and they had mistaken him as dead, and buried him in the tomb, think about it. If he was in there for 4 days, he would have dehydrated and died. Even a human being in fantastic physical condition would dehydrate and die in 4 days. Let alone somebody who appears to be dead, which means that they're in tremendous physical, tremendous physical problems going on. Nobody's going to last 4 days. He is undeniably dead. And Lazarus comes forth from the grave. You need proof that Jesus is the resurrection and the life? Here is proof. The case has now been made for believing that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. The proof is unassailable. Jesus just resurrected someone who had been dead long enough to be certain that he was dead. And unlike some of the other miracles he performed where their visible effects quickly disappeared, the visible effects of this miracle continued. A well-known, prominent Jewish family had somebody die. Everybody knew about it. And everybody got to see him being resurrected. And if you wonder if it happened, unlike the feeding of the 5,000 where people ate it and then told people about it later, even if you had carried the bread around for a little while, why are you carrying around a moldy loaf of bread? It's not proof. The same way as a person walking around who was buried a little while ago is. If somebody wanted proof that Jesus was the resurrection and the life, oh look, there comes Lazarus. There's living, breathing, walking around proof that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Now, it is decision time. What decision will the leaders make? What decision will the other Jews make? What decision will you and I make? If you've never made the decision to believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, here's proof. So, the decision, let me make sure I agree. The decision point arrives. So we've arrived to this decision point. Okay? We've arrived at the decision point. What are they going to do? What are you and I going to do? So then the second point is the decision made. The decision made. Verse 45, that many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. So, many people believed on him. They believed that he was the resurrection and the life. They accepted that. They saw proof of it. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things Jesus had done. Everybody knew that the Pharisees were against Jesus. This wasn't shocking news. And some of these people that had come to comfort Mary and Martha in regards to their brother Lazarus said, I don't care. I'm going to go tell the Pharisees. So a large group of people believed. Then there are some that said, no, I'm rejecting that. We're going to go tell the Pharisees. And so they take off, go tell the Pharisees what Jesus had done. Verse 47, then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. They don't gather a council and say, should we believe or should we not believe? They gather a council saying, and with the very premise of it is, we don't believe. And we cannot believe. Because they're worried about politics. They're worried that if people start following Jesus and believing in him, then they're going to say, well, Jesus is the Messiah. And then they're going to start to uprise against Rome. And then what's Rome going to do? Rome's going to come and squash them. The Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. They're more worried about their power, their prestige, their position in the government than they are about the truth. Unassailable truth, undeniable truth that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. They don't care.